Test, 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 1, 2, test, test, test. Test, test.
The August 10th, 2021 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Here.
Mr. Ansello. Here. Ms. Barnhart. Here. Mr. Baroff. Here. Mr. Baines. Here. Ms. Boyce.
Here.
Mr. Brew. Here. President Carbone.
Here.
Mr. Colby. Here. Mr. Delahanty. Here. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer. Here. Mr. Felder. Here. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Ms. Hasman. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Keller. Here. Mr. Keough-Fitlassi is excused. Ms. Lamar. Here. Mr. Lee is excused. Mr. Mafucci. Here. Mr. Marionetti. Here. Mr. Morelli. Here. Ms. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Terp.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Mr. Udelson.
Here.
27 members.
Please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Please stand as Legislator Yaversha Roman will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Your copy of the Journal of Day 15 of 2021, July 13th, 2021, are available through Nova's Agenda. Without exception, the journal will stand approved as submitted. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Nova's Agenda as well as online. There is one proclamation scheduled for this evening. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Would President Carbone, Legislator Mafucci, Legislator Boyce, and Legislator Udelson please join me here at the podium? Would the members of the Pittsford Race and Miller American Legion Post 899 join us here at the podium? Whereas it is the sense of this legislature to honor and celebrate the people and organizations that make Monroe County a better place to live. And whereas attendant to such concern, these legislators are justly proud to honor the Pittsford Race and Miller American Legion Post celebrating 100 years serving Monroe County and the greater Rochester community. And whereas the Pittsford Race and Miller American Legion Post 899 was founded in 1920 and commemorated 100 years in 2020. Though the celebration of this monumental anniversary was delayed by the pandemic, it will finally be properly observed. And whereas Post 899 is a chapter of the nation's largest wartime veteran service organization committed to mentoring youth, patriotism, and honor, promoting strong national security, and devotion to our fellow service members and veterans. And whereas the Post was named for two Monroe County residents killed in World War I, Homer Racine and Henry L. Miller. And whereas Homer Racine entered the Army in 1918 at age 26 and went to France that April. Though Racine survived the Meuse-Argonne campaign in October of 1918, he was later killed by a German shell and is interred in France. Henry L. Miller was the grandson of a Civil War veteran who entered the Army in July 1917 and shipped out that September. He was killed in the battle at Belleau Wood in June 1918 at the age of 23. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Dr. Joe Carbone, President, Howard Mafucci, Legislator District 10, Carla Boyce, Legislator District 5, and Michael Udelson, Legislator District 13, do hereby honor the Pittsford Race and Miller American Legion Post 899 commitment to Greater Rochester on this 10th day of August, 2021.
not only the veteran, in my opinion, more important.
There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We'll now hold the public forum. Mr. Clerk.
If you require assistance, a deputy is here and available to assist you in approaching the lectern in front. I will call 3 people forward at one time. Each speaker will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature, and please kindly conclude your remarks when the timer sounds and exit through the back door of the chambers to my right. We thank you in advance for your cooperation. The first 3 speakers, the first name I mentioned, will come to the podium, and the other 2 will be at the chairs to my right. Our first speaker this evening is Eugene Nolan, followed by Nathan Van Loon and Dave Stevenson. Mr. Nolan, Mr. Van Loon, and Mr. Stevenson, please approach the front.
And thank you. My name is Gene Nolan, and I'm the Monroe County Chairman of an organization called SPOKE, which stands for Shooter's Committee on Political Education. Talk a little bit about our county parks. Monroe County has some beautiful county parks, covering almost 12,000 acres. Parks were set aside for the average citizen, like us, to go and enjoy with our families recreation, the enjoyment of nature, skiing, hiking. Unfortunately, these parks are also visited by the criminals. And the criminals are there for one reason: to cause havoc. There's been reporting of crimes in these parks of rape, carjacking, beatings, and they are documented. One of the reasons they take place is because the parks are very secluded areas, which is what people want. They want to get away from peace and quiet. Unfortunately, you are not allowed to carry any protection for concealed carry weapons in the park at certain times by a 323 or 28. What we'd like to do is abolish that, give our citizens some protection, self-defense. Everybody in our organization has a pistol. You realize what we have to go through together. It's a lengthy process. Just to carry a weapon for defense, not offense. Defense. Protect our family, our loved ones. Defense. Now, these crimes that are committed in the park could possibly be prevented, and someone could carry a concealed I'd like to have you consider taking this law, right now, deprive some of our citizens from stop this spread. And that again is 325. Consider it for a real purpose. Give the citizens back some protection. We tutors or illegal tutors are not the problem. We could be part of the solution to give us a chance.
Thank you. Please summarize.
Thank you very much. We'll ask Mr. Dave Stevenson to come up next. And also, if I could remind all the public forum speakers to please use the microphone, speak into it. We are streaming live on YouTube, and folks at home might not be able to hear you. We want everyone to hear your comments. Thank you.
Outpatient treatment with ivermectin saves lives and prevents hospitalizations. Ivermectin prevents and treats COVID-19 and all variants safely, cost, and effectively, and it's safer and more effective than vaccines, and it's safer than aspirin. Late treatment puts patients into expensive hospitals and may kill them and bankrupt them. That's okay as long as the hospitals and doctors make bank. Hospitals, universities, and doctors don't care about the patient if it makes them money. In January this year, Leonard Dickinson was admitted to Rochester General Hospital with COVID-19 and put on a ventilator. The family pleaded with the intensive care unit to put her on ivermectin, and they gave her one dose, which led to dramatic improvement within 12 hours. Rochester General Hospital had to be court-ordered to continue giving her further doses. This is one of 4 New York cases where hospitals had to be court-ordered to give patients ivermectin, and where hospitals didn't honor the patient's right to try. India defeated COVID-19 and the Delta variant with ivermectin. South Africa defeated COVID-19 and the Beta variant with ivermectin. Mexico defeated COVID-19 with ivermectin with its test and treat program. With the Monroe County Department of Health ignoring early outpatient treatment, we need new leadership who will help end the pandemic. In the Monroe County Department of Health and the local medical industrial complex, you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. New ethics rules are great, but if the trigger never gets pulled and the job never gets done, it's worthless. If the Department of Health doesn't get new leadership, it will look like the county legislators are in the pocket of local hospitals and universities. Residents are merely second-class citizens. COVID-19 vaccines are unsafe at any age. People are rapidly figuring out they are being lied to. It's a pandemic of the vaccinated. It's an epidemic of the lack of early treatment. We are mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. I see mass noncompliance coming and societal pushback rising. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers are Jane Malwitz, Julie Donahue, and Merle McDonald. Would you please approach the podium up front? Again, that's Jane Malwitz, Julie Donahue, and Merle McDonald. Malwitz will begin, and our other 2 speakers, please take your seats.
I'm here to talk to you about my first issue is the lack of transparency and intimidation around our elections and election integrity in Monroe County. Following the November 2020 election, I called the Monroe County Board of Elections to inquire about what appeared to be a lack of signature. We I was threatened and told I'd be charged with a federal offense and was told I was making a mockery of the election. Is this an acceptable way to treat a citizen that is merely asking questions? Further information on this is my next area of concern is the transparency around the COVID illness and vaccination. I contacted the New York Department of Health regarding contact tracing in July 2020, and I was told it was voluntary. Why then did a Monroe County Health Department employee threaten to come to my home if my husband did not answer his call? While the government was openly encouraging riots, why were we threatened with physical force if we tried to leave our home? With physical force. Let those words sink in. In June 2021, why are people told the following at pop-up vaccination sites? And I apologize, these are not my words. All doctors are recommending the vaccine for women that are pregnant, thinking of becoming pregnant or breastfeeding, and they called it a twofer. Nothing to do with fetal issues. None of them use fetal tissues. That's pure bullshit. Even Dr. Mendoza says regarding children, there are a lot of transmission questions in kids because it's been so rare we haven't been able to study COVID in kids. Why are the individuals told only reason vaccines are under EUA, we don't have full approval, is paperwork? All the testing has been done, it's just paperwork. Doesn't seem to match the manufacturer's fact sheet that reference ongoing trials. Vaccines are safe in children and adolescents. What about the reports of severe side effects and death in children? Just yesterday, I learned of another child from a person close to me that experienced seizures. Would their parents say it's safe? I expect there will be follow-up with Monroe County Health. There seems to be a pattern of lack of transparency, aversion to the truth, and threats that should concern every citizen of Monroe County. And I can only trust you will find this concerning as well and work to rectify. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julie Donahue, to be followed by Merle McDonald.
Hi, my name is Julie Donahue. Each year, the county accepts a grant from Health Research Inc. for the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program that runs from July of the current year to June of the following year. Health Research Inc. is an independent 501c3 corporation. At the July 1st, 2021 legislative meeting, a representative from the Public Health Department said they began drills for the distribution of medical countermeasures using the COVID-19 vaccine in early 2019. He further stated the plans used that those were put into practice in 2020. Why would the plan be drilled a year before virus existed? The request to accept the grant for the year beginning July 2020 was for a total amount of $295,685, with an additional funding amount of $200,000 that could be received in the event an actual public health emergency occurred during the grant period. New York State is under an emergency order during the grant period. Did the county receive the additional funding of $200,000? The request to accept the grant for the year beginning July of 2021 was for a total amount of $298,685, with an additional funding amount of $1 million. That is 5 times higher than the prior year. These grants offer the ability to reappropriate unused funds according to grant requirements. What are the grant requirements? A month after this grant period began, the county began re-implementing medical mandates stating that the county had reached a substantial community transmission level. The community has already lost faith in our state and our public health department. These findings only create further cause to question the science behind the data that is being used to warrant further health mandates and shutdowns. The only way to restore trust in our public health system is to provide full transparency to the public. What is the science behind the PCR test? How much money does the county receive from and what have those funds been used for? What medical countermeasures plans have been built for this current grant period? Thank you for letting me voice my concerns.
Our next speaker is Merle McDonald.
My name is Molly McDonald. I'm an RN that works at Highland Hospital. I'm here to speak for the healthcare workers, not only of URMC, but also on our Rochester General System. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Right before I got in here, I was told that there was a bill number 80460 that was brought by Assemblyman D. Pietro, proposed at the State Assembly, prohibited mandatory immunization against the coronavirus vaccine at the state level. Why can't our Republican Party at the county level do the same? We need draft legislation to protect the bodily autonomy of all citizens in Monroe County. I want to tell you a story about a young woman that I've been involved in picketing. I had a young woman email. She was very anxious and afraid, pregnant, a nurse. She was told that she needed to get the shot before her baby was born. She would face termination of her job. They told her they wouldn't wait until after the baby was born. She must decide between the health of her child and losing her job. That's very cruel. We have many numbers of young nurses, young men and women, who haven't even have to get this shot in order to maintain their jobs. It hasn't been studied. It's never been studied on pregnant women. Why would we do this? I can't make any sense of our system anymore, our medical system, our government system. What are we thinking with this? Why would we take jobs away from the people that took care of all of you when you were sick? We were heroes last year, and now we're facing termination if we don't get an experimental vaccine. It's experimental. It usually takes almost 7 years for a vaccine to go through all of its testing. I don't understand this. People are so upset at the hospital about this. We don't understand. We need to change this. We need to wait until this is a safe vaccine, and we expect you to do it.
Our next three speakers are Melanie Bernhardt, Shirley Thompson, and Laura Thompson. Again, Melanie Bernhardt, Shirley Thompson, and Laura Thompson. Bernhardt will be first at the podium, and Shirley Thompson and Laura Thompson will be at the seats.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's actually Melanie Bernhardt. Opportunity to speak. In light of the rising Delta variant cases in the county, I'm going to shed some light on the truth of the PCR test. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services also authorized the use of PCR tests as a diagnostic tool for COVID-19, which themselves are experimental products authorized by the FDA under an EUA. A PCR test can test for the presence of a fragment of the RNA of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and literally by itself cannot be used to diagnose the COVID-19. Further, the way in which the PCR tests are administered guarantees an unacceptably high number of false positive results, almost 90%. For several months, experts have highlighted the true cause behind the COVID-19 pandemic, namely the incorrect use of PCR tests set at a ridiculously high cycle counts, which falsely labels people, healthy people, as COVID-19 cases. In reality, the PCR test is not a proper diagnostic test, although it has been promoted as. An important question that demands an answer is whether the experts at our federal health agencies and the WHO were really too ignorant to understand the implication of using the test at excessive CT levels, cycles, or whether it was done on purpose to create the illusion of a dangerous, out-of-control pandemic. And as you see, the narrative has started already. On July 16th, 2020, an interview discussing PCR deficiencies with Dr. Anthony Fauci stated that PCR test is useless and unreliable in diagnosing COVID-19. On just July 21st, last month, the CDC put out a lab alert and withdrew the PCR test because it cannot facilitate detection. A new test will be started in December, but in the meantime, between now and December, what data are we using for all of these new Delta variant cases? The whole premise of PCR testing to diagnose COVID-19 is in serious question. Regardless, those in charge need to be held accountable. Testing non-symptomatic people makes no sense. That you are healthy is like saying we have a case-demic problem, not a pandemic. Once you know the truth, you can't unknow. Please do not be complicit in perpetuating this false narrative. These are crimes against humanity. What side of history do you want to be on?
Our next speaker is Shirley Thompson, to be followed by Laura Thompson.
Good evening. My name is Shirley Thompson, and I am a member of Team Referral. Supporters came together in the wake of sexual harassment allegations by Latoya Sinclair against one of your colleagues. We are Team Referral, but as you know, your colleague actually has 12 women accusing him of sexual harassment, and none of their accounts have been discredited or proven wrong. So we supporters are here tonight demanding change in the treatment of women, your constituents, by members of this legislature and any other county employees. We're not an insignificant voting bloc, and we are prepared to organize and demonstrate to you that we are serious about sexual harassment. It must be given the status it deserves in your soon-to-be reformed code of ethics. And that code of ethics must be free of politics, well thought out, and set standards, consequences, and redemptive opportunities for violators. We believe Latoya Sinclair, and we are looking to work with you to make sure that no one else experiences what she went through. We agree with you that changes need to be made to the current Monroe County Code of Ethics, and we have specific ideas on that, some of which you'll hear tonight. And we also have ideas on ways to strengthen the current county board of ethics. We're here because the person who made despicable sexual advances to Ms. Sinclair either needs to resign or you need to render him powerless for the remainder of his term so he cannot inflict additional harm on any other woman or individual in our community. Sexual harassment is a form of violence. It is not primarily about sex, but about power. And I'm summarizing. Violators use power-based tactics to defend their behavior. You must know that your colleague's behavior and your silence has set a bad example of who you are and what you stand for as a body of members. However, you also are in powerful positions and you have a chance to redeem yourself. Do your authority to address your colleague's behavior and establish a bipartisan, gender-neutral
Our next speaker is Laura Thompson.
As women, residents, and members of Team Mateo, it is imperative that we repeat that we wish to not address sexual harassment, and in fact doesn't even mention sexual harassment. Neither proposed amendments from the county executive or Democratic or Republican members of the legislature speak to the issue of sexual harassment in clear and concise manner. We were puzzled to find that the Model Code of Ethics for Local Governments from the New York State Controller's Office also failed to include anything about sexual harassment. So as you prepare in the next few weeks to seriously deliberate adding sexual harassment language to your Code of Ethics, offer some suggestions. The policy against sexual harassment for the city of Vandalia, Illinois applies to the behavior of city employees. We offer it as food for thought for how we expect our public officials to behave among themselves and toward the public. According to Vandalia, Illinois, sexual harassment includes, quote, touching, unwelcome hugging or kissing, pinching, body, any coerced sexual act or actual assault, and sexting, which is electronically language, harassment, cyberstalking, and threats via all forms of electronic. I want the legislature to stop for a few seconds and imagine yourself having a text conversation. The next notification of an incoming message, you glance down and there, staring at you, is an image of your colleague's genitals. That is exactly what happened to 19-year-old, then 19-year-old. We must come to the understanding that this type of behavior is not about sex or lust. Rather, it is about the abuse of power. The power to do and say what you please. You have the title, the standing in the community, and the relationship with other powerful people to protect you. This is not good for our community, and it is not good for the perception of your ability to govern. Again, my name is Laura Munoz Thompson, and I'm a proud member of Team Lakea.
Our next two speakers are Kristen Hocker and Gigi Leno. Would you please approach the podium? Kristen Hocker will be speaking first, and Gigi Leno at the chairs to my right.
My name is Kristen Hocker, and I am also a member of Team Lakea. I shall get right down to business. We propose the following changes to your Code of Ethics. 1, adding sexual harassment as a violation of the Monroe County Code of Ethics. 2, increasing the number of members on the Board of Ethics and ensuring that it has gender-balanced bipartisan representation. Authorizing the Board of Ethics to investigate claims of sexual harassment against employees and elected and non-elected county officials. 4, establishing a transparent process for gathering input related to investigations, including 5, holding public forums to gather input regarding what should be included in an amended Code of Ethics. 6, authorizing the full legislature to take disciplinary actions such as fines, suspension, or removal of county officials and employees. 7, requiring offenders to undergo counseling to address their behavior. While a violator is in treatment, they should be removed from their position and denied participation in legislature business and committees pending completion of the final determination of the disposal of the case of a period of probation commensurate with the violation. As you consider the committee to address upgrading your current Code of Ethics with the inclusion of a sexual harassment policy, we have 3 reasonable requests. 1, we ask that you put forth your best effort to handle the issue of sexual harassment with care, depth, and in a no-nonsense manner with empathetic understanding of the inexplicable, long-lasting mental and emotional damage that survivors of sexual harassment suffer. Faithful to the rationale that caused you to run for public office and hold tight to the creed of every day trying to make the community better than you found it. 3, do not let this soon-to-be organized committee's work to be about politics. Given what we are facing in our county and at the state level around sexual harassment, we cannot afford to let politics get in the way of our ability to create policies and procedures that adequately deters anyone in your ranks to commit sexual harassment. I will summarize. You must remember and act with full integrity on behalf of the thousands of county constituents who are looking to you to provide a safe, inclusive, respectful, and welcoming environment for everyone that also affirms their gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, ability, socioeconomic status, age, religion, or a strong, morally sound sexual harassment policy will be in partial fulfillment of your oath of office.
Our next speaker is Gigi Leno.
Hi, my name is Gigi Leno, and I'm here just to speak for humanity as a whole, as I recognize the misinformation all over the place. The only thing we're hearing on the news is one agenda, it's going one way. So what I've come to figure out through this whole thing is there's a such thing as a Nuremberg Code of Law, and there's a difference between knowing what you're doing and unknowingly doing what you do. And that comes down to these experimental crimes, experimental violations that we are being forced to do. And that would be so I'm just going to read it. It says, every court of law in any location has universal jurisdiction to hear and try crimes against humanity. And violations of the Nuremberg Code are classified as crimes against humanity, which carry a maximum penalty of death. That means when you coerce, when you intimidate, when you persuade, when you trick, and you compel me or children or parents to try any kind of experimental gene therapy that is including the jab, which they're calling the COVID vaccine, or a medical device using a mask, any of those procedures against anybody's will implicates you as aiding and abetting in the capital offense as a crime against humanity. Have attorneys that are constitutional and ready to do the right thing for us. And with that being said, it takes me back to like the 1930s, the Nazi Germany. And even then, a lot of people stood up, which is what many of us are starting to do now. But the ones that went along with it, the doctors, the lawyers, the judges, the politicians, all of them, eventually, every single one of them that went along with it, they were held accountable. Thank you for your time.
That was our final registered speaker, and that would conclude the public forum.
Thank you. At this time, we'll recess the August 10th, 2021 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature, and we will convene the Rochester Pure Waters District. Mr. Clerk, please note the attendance and read the first item on the agenda.
Pure Water's agenda item number 1, referral 21-0266, authorizing an increase in improvement of facilities in the Rochester Pure Waters District, adding a project entitled Genesee Valley Pump Station, amend the 2021-2026 capital improvement program in the 2021 capital budget, and authorize financing.
Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Nondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. We will now recess the Pure Waters Administrative Board for the Rochester Pure Waters District. The August 10th, 2021 meeting of the legislature is reconvened. We will now proceed with the consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 20-02258, enacting a local law entitled Regulating Sale of Used Catalytic Converters.
Mr. President.
Second, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Boyce. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item.
Item number 2, referral 21-0258, providing that local law entitled Regulating Sale of Used Catalytic Converters be tabled.
Mr. President.
Second, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Boyce. This is a motion to table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 3, referral 21-0258, fixing a public hearing on local law entitled Regulating Sale of Used Catalytic Converters.
Mr. President.
Second, Mr.
Moved by
President.
legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Boyce. This is to set a public hearing. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. We will now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda?
Item number 4, referral 21-0171, creating centralized publicly accessible database of public handicap accessible restrooms and lactation areas throughout Monroe County.
President. Second.
Moved by legislator Terp, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item, please.
Item number 5, referral 21-0171, providing that resolution entitled Creating Centralized Publicly Accessible Database of Public Handicap Accessible restrooms and lactation areas throughout Monroe County be amended.
President.
Moved by legislator Turp, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. This is a motion to amend. I believe we're going to hand out the amendment. Is that correct? Okay, if everybody has had a time to review that, any discussion? Legislator Turp. Legislator Turp, any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Very good. Next.
Item number 6, referral 21-0171, creating centralized publicly accessible database of public handicap accessible restrooms and lactation areas throughout Monroe County be adopted as amended.
President.
Moved by legislator Turp, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Turp?
Of postal workers, delivery workers, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond, these workers have garnered the respect and work tirelessly to fulfill orders. Back this past April, I read an article in the Democrat and Chronicle highlighting a common issue that delivery drivers face in our community that is accessibility and easy access something as simple as a restaurant. Currently stands the standard for restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, and general requirement for the scooter item is something that drivers may not want or need. Monroe County operates dozens of restrooms, amazing restrooms, handicap restrooms, and lactation rooms. While the availability of these public resources is abundant, accessibility to them is difficult. Process, I'm happy. By creating an easily accessible database of these kind of facilities to be clearly updated, delivery drivers and other automobile-based employees can easily learn where to find so the database is a small addition service that will assist everyone in the community, drivers, people just in parks, especially those who work in long and management.
Thank you, Legislator Turp. Any further discussion on this?
About technology and advancements, I know most of my alerts come forward through different apps, weather alerts, COVID alerts, any different alerts. A good place for position GPS with this, obviously a website would be great, but an app would be even better. An app would be a good service.
Through you, Mr. President. We haven't contemplated an app for this specific request, and I can't speak for public safety as it relates to emergency services. I can repeat that. Again, this is Mike Garland, through you, Mr. President. We have not contemplated an app specifically for this request as it relates to public restrooms, and I can't speak for public safety as it relates to emergency services, but it's certainly something we can consider as we develop the requested application that would be posted conspicuously on the county website.
I think anything like that through the county, a lot of my alerts through my phone.
Good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 7, referral 21-0234, providing that a resolution entitled authorizing additions to Western Monroe County Agricultural District Number 5 be lifted from the table.
Move it, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Moved by legislator Boyce. Moved by legislator Morelli. Seconded by legislator Alcoffer. This is the lift from the table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Lifted. Next.
Item number 8, referral 21-0234, providing that a resolution entitled authorizing additions to Western Monroe County Agricultural District Number 5 be adopted.
No, move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Boyce. Moved by legislator Morelli. Seconded by legislator Alcoffer. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Number 9.
Item number 9, referral 21-0255, providing that a resolution entitled approving Monroe Community College's 2021 to 2022 operating budget be lifted from the table.
Second.
Moved by legislator Alcoffer. Who else wanted to move it? Did anybody else want to move it? Legislator Baines? Also moved by legislator Flagler Mitchell, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Seconded by legislator Mafucci. It's a free-for-all tonight, right, Legislator Lamar? Trying to confuse me? Okay, this is the lift from the table. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 10, referral 21-0255, providing that resolution entitled approving Monroe Community College's 21 to 22 operating budget be adopted.
President.
Second.
Second.
Order, Mr. President.
Yeah, really, what's going on here tonight? Yes, what's your point of order?
Point of order. I am confused by what's going on, and I don't half of the Democratic Party. We have decorum in the chambers, and I think that we should stick to that.
I'll uphold the point of order. Let's have a little decorum and
Point of order, Mr. President. I don't think that our rules say who.
you're parliamentarian, is that so? Mr. Morelli, what did you say? I didn't hear what you said. Oh, okay. We've never done this before, 6 or 7 movers, and it's very confusing. So what does that mean?
Have through the committee traditionally.
Secondary.
So we're going to leave it the way it is. Moved by legislator Alcoffer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on item number 10? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 11, referral 21-0260, amending 2021 Monroe County budget to authorize improvements to ice skating rink in Churchville Park.
Moved by legislator Elcofer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Yes, legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to explain my vote. I initially opposed this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? No. Let's go to a roll call vote, please.
Call vote. Mr. Brew. Yes. Felder. Yes. Mr. Lee is excused. Mr. Elcofer. Yes. Mr. Ansello. Yes. Mr. Barnhart. Yes. Mr. Baroff. No. Mr. Baines. No. Ms. Boyce. Yes. Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Hasman.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Kale Fetlossi is excused. Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Mr. Mafucci.
Yes.
Mr. Marionetti.
Yes.
Mr. Morelli.
No.
Ms. Roman.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Terp.
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox.
No.
And Mr. Udelson.
Got me.
President Carbone.
Yes.
Last but not least, sir. Passes
And it
23
carries.
to 4.
Next item, please. 12.
Item number 12, 21-0261, amending the 2021 Monroe County budget to authorize purchase of vehicle to transport firefighting apparatus for use at Frederick Douglass Greater Rochester International Airport.
Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Yes, legislator Baines.
President to the administration.
Through you, Mr. President. I believe, as we said at the committee meetings, the need for this vehicle came to our attention earlier this year. It's something we do plan on doing, possibly as part of the budget, but also one of the things I had mentioned was we were going to be applying for state airport grant funding. One thing this body should know that's happened since that our last committee meetings is we had received notification that the airport had received $27 million in federal funding. While we don't have the parameters of what that money can be used for, this vehicle certainly would have been something we would contemplate doing as part of that grant program. Through you, Mr. President, if that is an acceptable use of the federal money, that's something we definitely would pursue as we would with the state funding.
Federal money is also taxpayer money, isn't it?
Yes.
Contingency fund that was carved out of the budget of $2.5 million. What happens to the money that's not spent in that contingency fund by December 31st?
Mr. President, all appropriations unused as of December 31st expire.
I'd like to see us get this.
Thank you. Legislator Felder.
President, to the administration. Timetable for receiving those.
Through you, Mr. President, the timetable has not been established yet. Through you, Mr. President, I guess I would like to take this opportunity to clear up a misconception that I think became evident at the last committee meeting. This truck would be used to pull a vehicle for incidences that happened off-site of the airport. And, you know, as we talked about this, the tragedy that happened January was in Mendon, which took quite a bit of time to get to under just ordinary travel circumstances. One misimpression I wanted to clear up is that if something happens at the airport, my understanding is we have 3 airport vehicles that have the ability, fire trucks, that have the ability to use the foam that's used to put out these fires. And also, there are 2 vehicles across the street at the public safety training center that would be available. So there's 5 trucks that would be available to respond to an incident if, God forbid, something were to happen at the airport of that magnitude. And the reality is, if something of that magnitude happened and 5 fire trucks that carry the foam were not able to put out the fire, hooking up that trailer and bringing it to the site, unfortunately, as it was described to me by the airport administration and also the firefighters, if those 5 trucks couldn't put out the fire, we'd have much larger issues than that.
Pardon, what was that, legislator? Yeah. What happened in Mendon?
That was when the helicopter crashed. Through you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. President, I'm afraid I don't understand the question.
I think you said the need for this vehicle was warranted by what happened in Mendon. That incident, this vehicle could have been appropriate. Is that what you meant?
Through you, Mr. President. Yes, it was that accident that actually put this on the airport firefighters' radar, that it would be beneficial to have a vehicle like this. I guess I was responding to the question of, or the impression that was given that this was a matter of life and safety at the airport that was given at the committee meetings last month.
The airport firefighters will respond.
Through the chair, the firefighters' first duty is to the airport. If they're available to help with anything off-site, they go. So it's not necessarily just an aeronautical problem. It can be any fire issue.
Mr. President, through you, one more point I can make. We are not debating the need for this truck.
You through, Legislator Felder? Legislator Morelli?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, could you clarify what it is actually be towing? Truck, if I'm not mistaken, this truck itself is not a fire vehicle, but rather it tows something else. Correct? And could you tell us what exactly it is?
Through you, Mr. President. Yeah, it's a heavy-duty pickup truck that would be pulling a trailer that would hold an amount of foam that could be utilized by a fire truck on the scene.
Clarify, this truck tows foam, but you already need the foam truck. This is just like backup if they need more.
Through
How does the foam get there if we didn't have the truck? Is that
through,
good?
The truck carries foam. The initial truck carries foam. It's my understanding that this is extra foam.
Yeah, through you, Mr. President. Yeah, it does serve as a refill of the fire truck, and I would also like to point out any future questions. This was not our referral, so we'd be happy to answer any technical questions. But if you had general questions, I would suggest they should go to the maker of the referral.
Maker of the referral would be more than happy to answer some of those questions.
Legislator Dondorfer?
So there's a couple things. First of all, if there is an incident off the airport, according to the airport fire department, any aircraft that crashes, they respond to. However, they do leave trucks at the airport to handle an incident there. It should also be noted that as much as I appreciate the fact that we are possibly getting grant money that goes to this, this is an issue that was brought forward by the airport fire department as something that is critical in their need. What they're towing is a trailer that has the refill for the foam, which they are required to be back in service after an incident. So if a plane, God forbid, crashes, that foam delivery truck would go right out to the runway. So they are back in service while on scene at that runway, which is what the major purpose of this truck is to tow that away. Should also be noted that when they were available in the tragedy in West Webster, the airport fire department was the one that responded and actually put the fire out in order to get the rescue and recovery of the people that were shot in that incident. I appreciate the grant money that is possibly coming in. They do have a rescue truck that was put in service in 2002. They also have a captain's vehicle that was put in service in 2012 and another rescue vehicle that was put together in 2014. So the way it was explained to me is that there's been many times that the airport fire department has lost out on funding and grant money that has come through. That is not the fault of this administration. It's just the way that it has happened in the past. They came to us, and this is the outcome of that.
Thank you, Legislator Dondorfer. Any further discussion? Legislator Mafucci.
President, through you to the administration. Ask this, and that $55,000 transferred to the airport fund, and then we get the grant. Does that money stay in the airport fund? Does it go back into the general budget? Does it become cash capital?
Mr. President, once this honorable body approves this resolution, funds will be transferred to the Department of Aviation Airport Fund and remain there. They will not be transferred back.
Go ahead, Legislator Mafucci.
Through the administration. So
It does, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the
Mr. President, appropriations that are unencumbered as of December 31st of each year expire and are no longer available to be used. They would end up falling to fund balance.
part of my interest is very
Mr. President, with respect to appropriations that have been encumbered by a contract or other purchase order, if they are unexpended by December 31st, they become part of our assigned fund balance and would roll over to the subsequent year for the purchase order that was originally encumbering them. It is those appropriations that are unencumbered and available at year end that actually expire and fall to fund balance.
Legislator Boyce.
Just want to explain my vote. I'll be voting in favor of this. I just can't imagine anybody voting against it. Look in the eyes of somebody whose family is tragically, their lives are taken. You know, that Mendon crash, you know, it happened in my district. And those families have suffered greatly. I'll be voting in favor of this.
Legislator Baroff. You're usually tough to understand, Legislator Baroff. With the mask, it's really tough. I know. You tried to go slow, but I still didn't get it. Did you get it? Okay, good.
Through you, Mr. President, that truck would be hauling a trailer with foam that would be used to reload a fire truck.
About the fire truck dispense the foam, correct?
No, through you, Mr. President, no.
I'm actually going to vote in favor of this. I don't have an issue with voting. Was there a time, any time in the past where we needed it, we didn't have it, so we used it somehow on the April
Through you, Mr. President, we don't have any data on that, but if there is, I don't believe there has been one, but the issue is the quickness of the response.
how we're funding it, but I'm still happy to vote for it. But my understanding is essentially that the prices that are amended would not be affected with
If I could follow up on that, Mr. President?
Go ahead, Legislator Dondorfer.
Through you to Mr. Baroth, that's absolutely right, 100% right. However, the FAA does require that they are back in service, and whether it be at the scene or not, they have to respond to the next emergency, so they have to be refilled. That perhaps is going to be at a scene off the airport property. Follow up, but yes, I see the value of that, hence why I'm.
Legislator Felder.
Mr. President, if I may be granted some wide latitude, it's probably in the range of $6 to $8 million.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I think we'll need a roll call vote. Yes. Go ahead, Legislator Lamar.
I will be voting for. Highly encouraged that data has to be collected, not just airport issues, but across the board. We are in 2021, and when we talk about best practices and justification on why we should be moving funds around or having transparency to our constituents, we have to be able to show exactly why we are moving money around or accepting grants or decreasing, or whatever the case may be. I just highly encourage this administration, any administration moving forward, to start collecting.
Go ahead, Legislator.
How would the funds be released from the airport fund balance? Would that be done by a motion of this honorable body, or do they have the discretion to release those funds to pay for this item?
Mr. President, the reality is they probably would be able to make this purchase with the existing appropriations in the 21 operating budget. They would not have to seek an appropriation of fund balance for this purchase. They have the available appropriations.
President, I'd just like to make a brief comment. Buy this thing immediately.
Motion to table, a second. Let's go to a roll call vote to table. No discussion on a tabling motion.
Mr. Brew. No. Felder. No. Mr. Alcoffer. No. Mr. Anzello. No. Ms. Barnhart. Yes. Mr. Baroth.
Yeah.
Mr. Baines.
Yeah.
Ms. Boyce.
No.
Mr. Colby.
No.
Mr. Delahanty.
No.
Mrs. Florio.
No.
Mr. Dondorfer. No. Mr. Flagler Mitchell. No. Ms. Hasman.
No.
Mr. Hebert. Mr. Keller.
No.
Ms. Lamar.
No.
Mr. Mafucci.
Yes.
Mr. Marionetti.
No.
Mr. Morelli.
Yes.
Ms. Roman. Ms. Smith.
No.
Ms. Taylor.
No.
Mr. Chirp.
No.
Mr. Wilcox? Yes. Udelson? Yes. President Carbone.
No.
8 to 19 fails.
Motion to table fails. Roll call vote on the referral. Go ahead, Legislator Fucci.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, it probably represents about 25% of the airport's annual operating budget, probably a little less than that, maybe 20%. That is an adequate fund balance, Mr. President.
Roll call vote. Go ahead.
Mr. Brew? Yes. Mr. Felder? Yes. Excused, Mr. Elkoffer? Yes. Mr. Ansello? Yes. Ms. Barnhart? Yes. Mr. Baroth? Yes. Mr. Baines? No. Ms. Boyce? Yes. Mr. Colby? Yes. Mr. Delahanty? Yes. Mrs. Florio? Yes. Mr. Dondorfer? Yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell? Yes. Ms. Hasman? Yes. Mr. Hebert? Yes. Mr. Keller? Yes. Mr. Lassie, excused. Ms. Lamar? Yes. Mr. Mafucci? Mr. Marinetti? Yes. Mr. Morelli? Yes. Ms. Roman?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Terp? Yes. Mr. Wilcox? Yes. Mr. Udelson? Yes. And President Carbone.
Yes.
26 to 1 pass.
Item 13.
Item number 13, referral 21-0262, amending Resolution 134 of 2020 is amended by Resolution 276 of 2020 and Resolution 170 of 2021 entitled Accepting Grant from United States Treasury for Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security Act to ensure collaboration of government and legislative fiscal oversight.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Delahanty, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Legislator Mafucci.
President, through you to the
Through you, Mr. President. We have a number of concerns with this referral. First is the restrictions. The CARES Act funding was implemented and offered the localities to deal with a pandemic, and there was a flexibility given to governments to help them navigate through the pandemic and to deal with the issues caused by the pandemic. And that was something that was instituted in the guidelines handed down by the federal government. What is troubling about this referral is it actually does a couple of things. It limits the county executive's authority and ability to spend these dollars and the administration's ability to spend these dollars to a point where we have less flexibility if this referral were to pass than we do in our everyday spending and on a routine basis, and to throw these hurdles and regulations in our way as we're trying to deal with the pandemic are problematic. And they also make substantial changes to our typical procurement policy that we operate on an everyday basis. And Mr. President, I can actually give a real world example that happened last week of that we dealt with. If this referral was in place, would have had serious financial implications for the county and also possible serious health implications as we move forward through this pandemic. At one point
last week, the health department had made a determination that they wanted to make a substantial purchase of COVID test kits. Again, with schools starting up again in the Delta variant and all of the issues that are unknown that we're going to be dealing with, the professionals in the health department made a determination that we needed to make a substantial purchase. And as part of their process, they had internal deliberations that went on for several days about what was the best method to purchase to be able to do rapid COVID tests. Those deliberations were focused about the specific technology, whether they were the saliva test or if they were the nasal swabs, and they went through their process. While they were going through that process, our purchasing department sort of rang the alarm and said, listen, we need to make a decision on this quickly. And it was actually a matter of a couple days that we needed to make a final decision for two reasons. First of all, there was going to be a price increase, and we finally decided to do the nasal swab COVID test. That the vendor we were dealing with was going to have a price increase. And also, if we waited a couple days, there was a real issue as to whether or not these kits would even be available. So with that information, Health Director Mendoza and his team made a decision that we were going to go with a nasal swab test, and that process is underway, and we're in the position to actually procure them. And again, when the schools reopen in September, we're going to make those available to our partners at the school districts. If this requirement and if this referral was passed last week, we would have had serious problems in terms of meeting the deadline that the vendors gave us. And again, it's making things harder for us in a pandemic than they are in our everyday, ordinary course of business.
Any further discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Through you, Mr. President, I guess my answer to that would be there have been a number of instances. Again, I don't necessarily recall how many times we've come seeking special action before this body for COVID-related instances, but I will say there have been numerous instances where historical practices and historical norms have not been followed by this body in the course of the last 18 or 19 months.
Comment on your answer.
Through you, Mr. President, early on in the pandemic, we had a very difficult time obtaining PPE And I know that was something Mr. Garland was very involved in terms of reaching out and finding vendors. But that was a crisis situation. And again, we needed to have the flexibility and the nimbleness to be able to do that. So if this would have been in place in the beginning of the pandemic, surgical mask, gloves, gowns, face shields, things like that were extremely difficult to procure. And if we had to go through extra steps to procure them, there would have been real issues in terms of health and safety.
I've known for quite a while that schools are going to open next. Mr. President, if I can respond, that's not at all, to somehow say that I find it's an insult to the professionals of the health department to somehow suggest that this was a surprise to them. The Delta, if you knew that the Delta variant was coming and was going to have the response and the reaction that it did to our community, there's an analysis, there's a review, there's work that's done, and to somehow suggest that this was a failure and that we weren't able to have weeks of notice in terms of planning our response and what we were doing, I think is categorically false and inaccurate.
Legislator.
Math, and please help me to understand on how you wrote this particular if we voted on everything and assuming everything around $20,000, as a legislative body, we would be voting on approximately 6,000 items. Can you please explain?
1,000 items, put them in one package, we can vote on one thing. I'm not suggesting we have to vote on a
Everyone in this, governing body that we all voted on arts funding that didn't go through a process and has caused a lot of hurt in a community, had to waste a lot of time filling out applications that were sent to them by the legislature are invalid. Not go by a process we were supposed to go through. And now what we are saying is that we are going to, in essence, from my numbers, 6,450 different proposals of roughly $20,000 each, or is it $129 million that you're saying we're going to check when we couldn't even check our arts funding?
Well, we got a point of order.
No applications were mailed to anybody.
President.
I don't know where Legislator Roman got that.
Mr. President.
I'm not sure that's a point of order.
Correct the record, Mr. President.
Oh, through you, Mr. President.
We'll let you talk after her, Legislator
Yes.
Felder.
Through you, Mr. President, did nonprofit organizations receive contracts through the clerk? I have the emails. So, and I'm sorry if Legislator Felder is not aware of this because he's not actually communicating with nonprofit organizations, but a lot of time was wasted. So, for a point of clarification, nonprofit organizations within the Black and Brown community were granted actions in the form of kind of registering for a portal for money that they aren't going to receive through the legislature and has been cleaned up by.
What's your point of order, Legislator DeFlorio? I'm going to uphold that point of order. Do you have anything that has to do with this referral?
Yes, so my point of order is that this legislative body is acting unethically, and it is asking to oversee. I have a huge concern with that, and because of that, I will be voting no.
Thank you. Legislator Felder.
It is the truth, and I am sorry that he does
Okay,
not know that.
Legislator Roman, Legislator Felder has the floor a little.
Let's want to clarify the record.
Yes, Legislator Colby, Legislator Felder has the floor.
I'm not even going to respond.
It's the truth, and I refuse for you to call me stupid.
I didn't call you stupid. I said,
Okay, but the point of order we called, that Arts has nothing to do with it.
respond to it. It was just.
Okay, Legislator Colby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. President, I'm just curious initially, how much was the
Through you, Mr. President, that was approximately $685,000.
President? I think the vision that we're having here on how this money should be spent. Approve an annual budget every year. A lot bigger number than this, and all we ask, we don't buy the pencils, but we approve a general budget for each department or each category or line items. So if you don't want to come to us with every $20,000, which I don't think we want to, supplemental budget and saying, we're going to assign so many of these dollars to this department, so many for this department. General idea where I would on general idea where these funds are going without hearing about a lump sum broken down so you can keep under the 20,000 to make charter. Like all I'm saying is, we're not asking for any more authority than we already have with our budget process that we go through every year. Look at it that way, this process could be very simple and very streamlined because we already have that mechanism in place.
Thank you. Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration.
Minus the 15 million.
Minus the, yes, exactly. I consider that encumbered.
Mr. President, I'm struggling to recall what the announcement was yesterday for $15 million, but I will say there is approximately $11.5 million available. Mr. President, there is approximately $11.5 million that is available. It has not yet been expensed or committed.
Legislator Morelli?
Budget process. Am I correct in that that is not at all what it is the maker of the motion wants? If I'm correct, the maker of the motion wants to cross every T and dot every I so that it makes it possible for the administration to do the business of the county. So I just want to clarify that what Mr. Colby suggested versus what Mr. Hebert is suggesting are two very different things. So with that being said, Mr. President, I would move to table this motion so that Mr. Hebert and Mr. Colby could get on the same page. I would move to table this motion.
Roll call vote on tabling the motion.
Mr. Brew? No. Mr. Felder? No. Excused. Mr. Alcoffer? No. Mr. Ansello? No. Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Mr. Baroth? Yes. Mr. Baines?
Yes.
Ms. Boyce? Mr. Colby? No. Mr. Delahanty? No. Mrs. DeFlorio?
No.
Dondorfer?
No.
Flagler Mitchell? No. Ms. Hasman?
Yes.
Mr. Hebert? No. Mr. Keller? No. Joe Falassi is excused. Ms. Lamar? No.
Yes.
Marionetti? No. Mr. Morelli?
Yes.
Ms. Roman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
No.
Ms. Taylor?
No.
Terp? No. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Udelson? Yes. And President Carbone.
No. Any further discussion on the original referral? Seeing none, let's go to roll call vote on that, please.
Mr. Brew? Yes. Mr. Felder? Yes. Mr. Lee is excused. Mr. Alcoffer? Yes. Mr. Ansello? Yes. Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Mr. Baroth?
No.
Mr. Baines? No. Ms. Boyce? Yes. Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mrs. Florio?
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Flagler Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Hasman?
No.
Mr. Hebert?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Lassie excused. Ms. Lamar?
Yes.
Pucci?
No.
Marionetti?
Yes.
Morelli? Ms. Roman?
No.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Terp?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
No.
Mr. Udelson? And President Carbone.
Yes.
9 pass.
Next item, 14.
Item number 14, referral 21-0263, Young Citizens of the Year and Willie W. Lightfoot, Youth Advocate of the Year recommendations.
President.
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Boyce.
President, to the administration. It's my understanding that the heat index I am wondering for the people that are there, what is the plan, the backup plan, if it's that hot and we have to, have people out.
And potential thunderstorms also, I read.
Through you, Mr. President. As you know, this is a joint venture between our administration and the legislature. So we could have a discussion on that tomorrow morning. President, certainly, I'd be, in favor of whatever needs to be taken and necessary to make sure that people are safe and that we don't have an issue. So, thank you for that consideration.
I say for the time being, we all agree on going on the no tie. Is everybody okay with that? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 15, referral 21-0264, confirming appointment and reappointments to the Monroe County Recycling Advisory Committee.
But Mr.
Moved by
President,
legislator Taylor, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 16, referral 21-0265, approving increase in improvement of facilities in Rochester Pure Waters District, add project entitled Genesee Valley Pump Station, and amending the 21-26 capital improvement program.
Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. This is for introductory purposes. Next item,
Item
please.
17, referral 21-0265, providing that resolution entitled approving increase and improvement of facilities in Rochester Pure Waters District, add project entitled Genesee Valley Pump Station, and amending the 21-26 capital improvement program be tabled.
President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. This is a motion to table. Says discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 18, referral 21-0265, calling a public hearing for the purpose of considering a proposed increase and improvement of facilities in Rochester Pure Waters District entitled Genesee Valley Pump Station.
Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. This is to set a public hearing. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item 19, referral 21-0267, authorizing Monroe County Sheriff's Office to accept gift of Belgian cross horse named Scout from owner Nicole Earhart.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? I thought we decided there was just going to be one mover and one seconder. Pardon? Okay, moved by legislator Borelli, seconded by legislator Roman. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 20, referral 21-0268, accepting federal CARES Act funding for Monroe County Library System.
President,
Moved by legislator Alcalfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Number 21, referral 21-0269, amending 21-26 capital improvement program and 21 capital budget to add project entitled Monroe County Park System-wide facilities renovations and authorizing interfund transfer.
President,
Moved by legislator Alcalfer, seconded by legislators Dondorfer and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item 22, referral 21-0271, authorizing intermunicipal agreement with New York State Department of Transportation for operation and maintenance of Colonel Patrick O'Rourke Bridge.
move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by legislators Ansello and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, seconded also by legislator Morelli. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item 23, referral 21-0272, amending Resolution 219 of 2015 as amended by Resolution 206 of 2016 and Resolution 177 of 2020, accepting additional funding from New York State Department of Health and extending time period, increasing and extending intermunicipal agreement with City of Rochester for childhood lead poisoning primary prevention program.
President,
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislators Anselo and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Item
Next.
24, referral 21-0273, accepting grant from New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for 2122 aid to Crime Laboratories Grant Program, Office of Medical Examiner.
President,
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item 25, referral 21-0274, authorizing contract with Community Care of Rochester, Inc., DBA, visiting nursing signature care for support of nurse-family partnership program.
President,
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Item 26, referral 21-0275, classification of action and termination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at Lehigh Station Road in town of Henrietta.
President,
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item 27, referral 21-0276, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located on Lehigh Station Road in town of Henrietta.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on this? None, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item 28, referral 21-0277, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to State Environmental Quality Review Act for sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located on Bromley Road in the town of Riga.
Mr. President,
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Item 29, referral 21-0278, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located on Bromley Road in the town of Riga.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item 30, referral 21-0279, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 30 Morrison Avenue in the town of Chilai.
President,
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item 31, referral 21-0280, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 30 Morrison Avenue in the town of Chilai.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. 32.
Item 32, referral 21-0281, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located on Union Street in the town of Ogden.
President,
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item 33, referral 21-0282, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located on Union Street in town of Ogden.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item 34, referral 21-0283, directing the refund of certain Monroe County taxes levied and collected against property in the town of Arundecoy.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert, also seconded by legislator Morelli. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 35, referral 21-0284, authorizing intermunicipal agreement with Churchville-Chilai Central School District for reimbursement to Monroe County Sheriff's Office School Resource Program.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislators Anselo and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick statement. I'd like to commend Churchville.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Item 36, referral 21-0285, authorizing intermunicipal agreement with Rush Henrietta Central School District for the purchase of fuel for vehicles of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislators Ansello and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries.
Item 37, referral 21-0287, accepting grant from United States Department of Treasury for the Emergency Rental Assistance 2 program.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Boyce.
Recently, there was an article in the paper with regards to not actually with regards to the kind of funding. So I just wondered if we could have an update from the administration with regards to how we're doing on this.
Good evening. Through the chair, Denise Reed from Monroe County Department of Human Services. We actually did not elect here in Monroe County to participate in the state program. So news articles referencing the state's inability to get the money out doesn't really apply here locally. We collaborated with the city of Rochester and kept our money locally and are operating a program that started April 1st. As of the end of July, we have issued over $10 million to Monroe County tenants, and weekly updates are provided to the legislature regarding the amount spent and the zip code served.
I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the funding that we're receiving, how will we be using that funding?
Through the chair. So municipalities were awarded funding from the federal government based on their population size. So several municipalities throughout the state received funding. Most of those chose to send their money to New York State and not operate a program locally. We operate a local program. Onondaga operates a local program. There's a couple states, towns downstate that operate a local program. So this article was referencing the state program, which you're correct, is not applicable to Monroe County because we kept our money and we ran the program locally. We also received, through a referral that came through the legislature previously, the money from the city. In this second round, the city did not draw down their own funding, and the county was able to draw down the total amount for the entire county, and that is what it's being voted on tonight.
So, follow-up question. So how, I guess, data-wise, how are we doing in reimbursing the landlords that are for these tenants that are staying there? And any other data you can give us with regards to how, how we're doing with progressing?
Yes, through the chair. So the weekly reports that we're providing does give you all of the data. It's very specific down to the zip code regarding applications received, applications processed, applications remaining pending, as well as assistance issued to tenants living in those zip codes. The $10 million that we reference is an actual number for disbursement to landlords. That was at the end of last month or middle of last month, maybe. Already we're up to about 14 million total, with about 12 million actually paid and another 2 million promise that hasn't been paid but will be paid shortly. We're making those payments daily from one of the 13 partner CBOs that we're working with, as well as making payments internally for tenants that apply directly with DHS. We also have a cohort of applications that we've accepted from CBOs who had backlogs, and those payments are also being made internally through DHS and through the county finance office. So that's real data that's available and being submitted weekly through the channels to get to the legislature.
So, Mr. President, I appreciate that. And the only reason I'm asking that is because people that are not here tonight are very, are asking questions and just want this to be on the record. So that's, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Legislator Hasman.
Through the chair, that is correct. We are outperforming, I think we're the second best program in the nation. And we are on track to meet the goals set by the Treasury that said that 65% of the funding needed to be spent by September 30th. Through the chair.
Any further discussion? Legislator Lamar.
President, I just want to say kudos to
Legislator Colby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, President, I was looking at these charts, and that really makes really appreciate the data. It puts a good job of outreaching through the whole county, not just specifying one area. But I guess my question I have is, when the applications are denied, what's the typical reason an application is denied? Typical answer.
Through the chair, there are a variety of reasons people are ineligible. A lot of eligibilities, while I appreciate Legislator Lamar's sentiment that the process is easy, it does still require documentation. And the number one reason why people get denied is failure to provide that documentation. We have a process that looks at open health and safety violations. Individuals that have that as a reason are not necessarily denied, but it is a factor in some approvals that we're waiting for those violations to be cleared so that the process can move forward. But by and large, the most denied reason is for failure to provide the documentation.
President, just to follow up on that, when you say there's violations, are you saying there's code violations that the landlord house doesn't meet standards? So that's why it's
Through the chair, that's correct. So we are unable to issue payment for a household that has open health and safety violations. So not necessarily all code violations, but violations that specifically are related to health and safety.
how are you guys handling this, if there's a way to do it or to encourage? My understanding that if a tenant landlord applies, the tenant still has to sign off and give documentation qualify. I do know one case where somebody says, I don't want the landlord to give money because I don't want him to. Do you guys try to encourage the renter? And I would encourage you to encourage the renters to participate in this program willingly, not just to try to stick it to the guy. Have you run into that? Do you, Mr. President?
Through the chair, absolutely. As you can imagine, after many, many months of non-payment, relationships between tenants and landlords are quite strained. And so, yes, we have run into situations where the tenant is not willing to comply on a landlord-initiated application. But the eligibility for this program set by the federal government is very clear that this is the tenant's eligibility. It's based on the tenant's income, and the tenant must cooperate in applying. As you may know, Providence Housing is our designated agency to work with landlords, and they absolutely do yeoman's work in trying to encourage tenants to cooperate when the landlord has submitted the application. And they are successful. Of course, if the tenant is operating with malice, they're never going to be successful. But for the most part, some of the hesitation from tenants on a landlord-initiated application have to do with them not wanting the landlord to have their information. And so Providence is very adept at explaining to the tenant that they can submit the information directly to Providence. It doesn't have to go through the landlord, and try to help protect some of the client's confidentiality that they're concerned about. And they do a lot of mediation between both the tenant and the landlord to try to get to an agreeable solution so that the funding does get issued out to the landlord. So yes, we are aware there are some instances that we absolutely cannot overcome it. And in those cases, we refer to the Tenants Defense Fund and other mediation that the court has to try to help alleviate some of those issues. Through the chair.
President, thank you for your answer, and I would strongly encourage you guys positive reinforcement between.
Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Legislator Hebert.
Through the chair, if I said that, absolutely an error on my part. No money is paid to the tenant. The money is issued directly to the landlord.
Get a microphone, please, Legislator Hebert. No. Try again, I apologize.
Through the chair, yes. Through the chair, absolutely. I think it, with a qualifier that if it's something that we're already collecting. So we are collecting data, a lot of data in the program that we're using for this, the software that we're using for this program. A lot of data points in there, but if it's something that we're not already collecting and we choose to report on it, we would need the time to have the system updates to accommodate and collect that information. Through the chair.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Before we adjourn, I'd like to recognize our fellow legislator, Terp. For those of you who are not already aware, tonight is the final meeting for our colleague, Matt Terp. Matt began serving as a legislator in 2015 and won re-election to his office in 2019. During his time in the legislature, he has chaired the Recreation and Education Committee and most recently served as an assistant majority leader. Unfortunately, due to complications stemming from the COVID-19 virus, he has made the difficult decision to step aside from public service to focus on his health and his family. This honorable body, the administration, and the residents of Webster, thank you for your service as a Monroe County legislator, and we wish you the best of luck in your recovery and your future endeavors. Thank you. Like to say anything, Matt, or should we adjourn? Okay. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
2021.